So how can we get away from that in the future then? You know, because is it just a case of evolving and learning from our mistakes?
Yes, you have to learn from it, and then basically people have to be willing to think for themselves. Which because a lot of people want to be told what to do because they won't think for themselves.
Yeah, but do you think there's like a masculine energy in the world that males probably need to become in touch with their feminine side a bit more?
Exactly, yes.
Which is creativity and
It's the masculine
intuition.
that's gone out of control in society.
Do you think that's anything to do with us not taking psychoactive drugs? Like in the past, there was like cultures took mushrooms and they had orgiastic rituals once a month for the full moon and these kind of things were boundary dissolving.
Exactly, bond them together, it gave them greater insight.
So the men, they were more feminine, in touch with their feminine side, and actually women were leaders in the past, were they not?
They were, yes, at one point.
I think there's going to come a time again when our leaders will come.
What we need is balance, we don't put one above the other. Each's got something to learn from the other.
So do you think, like, as I mentioned, David Icke and Alex Jones are doing any good to wake people up?
It's difficult to say how much good they're doing, because if they start putting out things which create ridicule, it puts people off the truth.
So,
for instance, like David Icke in particular, you know, he was a TV presenter, he had his contacts, and therefore probably part of the Masons, that's why he gets successful, he had all the contacts to get well known. You know, he's only there because he is a Mason, he's not giving you the truth.
Well,
the ones who are actually not part of the system are not as well known.
Yeah. So do you think like David Icke went on the Wogan show intentionally to become ridiculed to start us all off, you know?
Well, basically there were other people before him telling the truth. He mixed a load of stuff about reptilians and aliens and all stuff like that, and he creates ridicule of the whole thing so people don't see the truth anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of started reading about conspiracy theories with David Icke. He was talking about the Bilderberg Group and Council on Foreign Relations.
That's true.
And all that was, and then he brought out the book, I think it was Children of the Matrix or something like that. And I'm reading it, it's like the Queen's turning into a reptile. It's like, it makes you feel ridiculous, you know, and it gives
then it puts people off the truth, that's the...
Yeah. And Alex Jones is very fear-mongering, I feel.
And that doesn't do any good either.
Yeah, because that disempowers people more.
The people who are dark as such don't have any power to create. They need your thoughts to do that. Their way of controlling the world is to make you create it with your thoughts. They feed your mind with these fearful images, so you're helping create it. So spreading fear does not help.
Okay.
If one sees something wrong, you have to know that you can change it.
So this goes back to taking your power back as an individual level again.
And knowing that you create your reality.
How does creating your reality work on a scientific level? If you know what I mean, you've got this quantum physics people talk about these days. Do you know anything about
quantum physics proves that everything becomes what we expect it to become. Like, for instance, it's been known for a long time that nothing's really solid. The only thing that stops me from falling through this chair is that actual energy fields moving particles. There's a lot of space between everything. There's so much space between the nucleus and the electrons around it that if you were to collapse all the electrons into the orbits of every atom in the world, the Earth would be 1 centimetre wide. Then they found that even that's not solid, because the nucleus consists of these protons and neutrons with space between. Then they found they're not solid either, because there's more space between the quarks, and so on. And they divided them down to neutrinos, and found that the space between all sequences of neutrinos were vibrating at a different rate. So the difference between the substance and the nothing is the vibrator rate of the neutrinos. So when they started to see why they become, say, an electron one moment and nothing the next, they found they become what we expect them to become. So it seems like the one determining factor in creating the whole universe is awareness.
Conscious choice?
No, it's not always conscious choice.
Right.
A lot of things are here because you expect them to be.
Right.
You're not choosing to expect that. It's like, a person might decide, I'll walk through this wall, but can you really not expect it to be solid?
Right, okay. So, it's like when you say when you do a science experiment, it's like the observer affects the outcome.
Yes, you observe, but there's nothing as an observer, because by being there you're changing it.
So when you're creating your reality, is there like lots and lots of different futures could possibly exist for us?
That's right.
And the one we focus on is like we're becoming the observer in the experiment.
Yes, the more you focus on it, the more it's going to happen.
So if you have a dream, if you can dream something, it can happen. You just have to focus on it more.
Exactly.
And
some things are easier than others. Like you can imagine flying through the air like Superman, it probably isn't going to happen. You're going to understand some of the limitations of this world.
But if there is a dream that you've got an urge inside you possibly telling you to do something, then kind of follow it, you think?
Yeah.
More people should do that.
Well, you've got to realise what dreams are realistic and which are just fantasies. So you can fantasise about all kinds of impossible things.
Right.
And that's okay too, because the fantasy is simply there to exercise the imagination. The imagination is such an important tool, of course it's going to exercise itself. So one has to know which are fantasies and then which dreams you're really going to follow. You've got energy to make them happen.
Okay. So, who do you think then is behind the conspiracy now on the planet?
It's all the money makers and the big banking families.
So that's like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers.
Yes,
So basically, we don't have to look too far.
No, you can see if you just look at what they've been doing in the world for centuries. So they're funding all the wars, they're funding all the poisons, they're putting people into slavery, putting people more and more in debt. It's obvious, you know. You look at this; it's totally evil. You don't look for any hidden conspiracy.
So the Vatican is involved in that as well, because they just make out
the same family. You look at the genealogy, you realise that the American presidency, the Vatican, the English Crown, and the World Bank is all the same family.
So basically, the banks are not there to help us.
No, they're
See, when I was younger, it was a Clydesdale bank, the Friendly Bank, and it had a child's account, you know, and I thought this is a really nice bank. And then you get
your money.
Yeah,
of course.
that's basically it. They're not there just to keep your money for.
The money they print anyway means nothing. What they want is your labour. That's the only thing of value, which means they're making you into a slave.
So basically, they can print money, they can put it on a computer screen. It's the work that we do is valuable. It's the hours we put in on a daily
They
basis.
print as much money as they want. It doesn't mean a thing. It becomes a way of taking your labour.
Yeah. And it's also getting used just now to take real things back, because they've funded people buying houses. Now they're taking the money out of circulation, and now they're taking the property back.
Exactly.
So it's increasing
It's
their.
all been part of manipulation.
So how much tax do we pay then? Because the bankers lend the government money. Instead of the government giving interest-free money, why do these bankers control the government with regard to, if the government wants money, we have to go to the bankers for it?
Yes, exactly. That's how they've set it up from very early on.
So we need to cut that tie, first of all.
That's the thing. If we stop relying on money, one has to step out of the whole thing of actually borrowing money for everything. Because the money itself doesn't do anything. It only becomes... well, actually, the government's a part of the plan. Being in debt to the World Banks is what keeps the whole country in slavery, keeps it under control.
So
Keeps them
basically,
working,
our income tax and basically goes straight to the interest for these bankers.
Most of it, obviously, a small amount goes to all the resources that are in the country, but about 90% is going straight into the pockets of the World Banks.
So can you tell us, not so much now, in the past, the church has had a huge influence over people. How does it control people? And like the 7 deadly sins, where did they come from? What's that about?
Well, first of all, the church began as a political movement of mind control. It was named after Circe, who was the goddess, the sorcerer. She was about mind control. So the church actually comes from her name. It was created in the 3rd century, so it has nothing to do with Jesus.
So the church comes from, the name church is mind control.
Yes, that's the very meaning of the word.
Right.
It came in at the 3rd century, so it had nothing to do with Jesus. Jesus was long gone by then if he ever existed. But what happened is at the time when the Roman army was losing its grip, and they did other ways of controlling people. So they created this kind of spiritual control.
So they've used the symbol of Jesus, though. So every time...
Well, all the rules put out as Christian, the ones to keep people in slavery again. They stop you from reaching out and getting anything for yourself because it becomes a deadly sin. Everyone wants to feel good about themselves, but pride is a deadly sin. If you want anything for yourself, greed is a deadly sin. People, want good sex, that lust is a deadly sin. And if you wonder why they've got the money you haven't, well, jealousy is a deadly sin. It stops you from doing anything for yourself.
Yeah.
It's totally under control.
And,
It's all designed to keep you down.
And they've been pretty good at it over the years.
Oh yeah, because people have bought into it.
Yeah.
Believe them.